you very much for accepting my invitation and accepting to be on my show.
Sure, it's a pleasure. I'm not sure I'm technical enough for your audience because I watched some of your podcasts and you've got some pretty technical folks coming on.
So I did master's in software engineering and I did graduation in computer science and engineering. So I just wanted to know different people thinking who are into different professions, who are into different parts of the world, just trying to know what are making all of us connect with each other. So trying to test.
I think that's terrific. Again, I'm happy to talk to you because you're not the person I normally talk to and because you're in a different part of the world. And so it's an opportunity for you to learn about me and me to learn about you and what's going on in India.
So before talking about you and the work that you are doing, can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Absolutely. So my name is Wayne Sadin, and my background is that I've got 30 years as a CIO, CTO, and CDO. My first CIO job was in 1982, probably before some of your listeners were born. And so I did that for a number of years. And for the last 10 years, I've been an advisor. I'm not a CIO anymore. I'm an advisor to CEOs, to board members, to investors, talking about how to use technology better in their company. Recently, I started working with a firm called Acceleration Economy. They are a website and a magazine and a series of shows, and they have a number of analysts, people like me. I talk about the board and the CFO and the CEO and how they can use technology. But so now I've recently become affiliated with them, and I'm doing a lot of writing and a lot of speaking.
So I'm sure in these 30 years you learned a lot about technology. So my question to you is, what is the connection between human and technology?
Between humans and technology, did you say?
Yeah.
Well, we live in a technology age, right? Right now, everything we do, when we started this interview, I had my fancy computer with all the technology and it didn't work. So I grabbed my phone and brought up Skype on that and sent you a message that said, wait, I'm going to get my iPad. And now we're on an iPad. You're sitting there with your earphones in, you've got some device in front of you. Everything we do is technology, whether we're shopping, whether we're making something, we digitally print it. Every service we consume now streams over the internet. So it's becoming everything in our lives, for good and for bad. When the technology's down, what do? When the technology's working as it should, though, it really does make life better for many people.
So in these 30 years, how you saw the growth, the levels of growing technology. So what actually made technology to reach every part of this planet?
Well, when I started in technology, we're talking now 1970s. Again, think about how long ago that was. The computer was a mainframe. It was a $20 million machine in 1970s dollars, which is 100 million today, sitting in a $10 million building in the basement of a bank or an insurance company or the government. Those are the people that had computers because they needed an army of people like me, who was just starting out with a computer science degree, to keep them running. And we produced, with all of that investment, all of that gigantic machinery, monthly reports, weekly reports. The idea that we could do daily reports, nah. Nobody can do reports every day on sales and payroll and manufacturing. Think about that. Today, you pull up your phone and you want to see a statistic from 5 seconds ago. And so think about the change in technology. We've gone from computers that stored things. They stored the past. This was our sales last month. This was our production last month. This was our payroll last month. To systems that predict the weather, that predict how you should drive to your destination using a tool to look at traffic. And we've changed from looking backward a month ago to now looking at today and looking forward into what might happen to the supply chain, to the economy, to your business, to your dating life. And it's all moved from monthly and retrospective to instantaneous and futuristic.
So this technology is connecting people or disconnecting people?
Yes. The answer is both. Look, we just had a pandemic. I don't know what India is going through right this minute, but you've had your ups and downs. India was doing very well. Then India had a lot of lockdowns. The US was doing well. Then we had our lockdowns. So in my case, for example, I'm sitting here at home and my work has not changed. I'm a consultant and an advisor. Now, some of my clients had to change. They sent everybody home. But I'm so connected. There are days, well, we're using Skype today. I haven't used that in a long time. I'll go from Zoom to WebEx to FaceTime to Teams and back to Zoom. And I'm actually more in connection with people because I don't have to care that they're 7 hours away by plane. We make an appointment, we click the button, and maybe one of us has lights turned on because it's dark outside, but we're all in connection. Now, having said that, I still, now that we're vaccinated, and again, I don't know your situation, I've got 3 shots, so I feel safe. I'm trying to meet 2 people every week that I haven't met before and buy them a cup of coffee or lunch or breakfast because I've missed the opportunity to meet random people. So what happened with technology is everybody you could find, and you reached out to them and you got into a FaceTime with them or a Skype with them. But how about the people you didn't know that you'd normally run into at a trade show or a conference or a classroom or a coffee shop? We lost some of that opportunity. And so I think the technology now has to get more immersive. You see what Microsoft is doing. I mean, Facebook changed the name of the company to talk about the metaverse. They want to build an immersive environment. And why are they doing that? I suggest they're doing that because the communication we have now works like this. You text me and say, can we talk in a week at 8:30? And I say, sure. And then a week later at 8:30, we talk. What I'd like to be able to do is interact with a rich world as though I was at the museum, at school, at work, in my family reunion. How do we interact smoothly in that environment? And I'll say we don't do it by wearing 5-pound goggles on our faces. I've got the goggles in the other room and I'm playing with them. What's going to happen is we're going to have to project that into our glasses or maybe with something you wear around your neck that shines up. Technology, they're working on that technology. So I don't have to have the weight on my head. I have the weight down here and it aims up and interacts with the faceplate. And ultimately with holograms, we'll just project a hologram out in front of us and it'll be a superimposition on the world. So I think that the vendors who've now spent billions of dollars connecting us with Zoom and Skype and Teams and WebEx and all of that are now realizing they have to connect us in a different way to the chaotic world instead of the structured world. You and I met because you read something I wrote, we connected, now we're friends, but I wouldn't know you if I ran into you on the street. And where would I run into you on the street? We're 8,000 miles apart. We need tools to let us do that. I hate to say for the next pandemic, because I hope we don't have another one, but for the next time we need to change our work style. I think that's what's coming. And I think the vendors, while they're very early on this journey through AR and VR and the metaverse, it's a great direction for fixing the problem we have, which is our interaction is so limited and so scheduled.
So 30 years back when you started your career, what the real world was different. Now the world came inside the devices, the virtual world. So what is the major difference that you are observing in humanity?
Well, we're all connected to our device. The major difference is people's reality is this thing in front of them. I'm sure where you live, certainly where I live, every kid is on their phone the whole time. I see kids talking to each other that are 10 feet apart by texting. We don't know how to live without the phone. And so I hate to say in my generation, I didn't have a phone. A phone was a thing attached to the wall with a very long cord. And what I would do is when I was a teenager, I would take the long cord and I'd go sit in the closet, close the door so my parents couldn't hear me talking to my friends. And when you were out of the house, you didn't have any connection. Maybe a payphone that cost 10 cents, but maybe not a payphone because you didn't have 10 cents. Now we're used to being connected. I no longer have any questions that I can't answer. Somebody says, what does this word mean? What is this fact? Before we talked, I went and looked you up. I saw some of your material. So we're now in an age when we're bombarded by information. And I think the challenge for a lot of people is they've got to stop occasionally and think about what they've seen, what they've experienced, what's happened around them digitally. And so maybe I live on the beach here. I can walk right down the street and there's the sand in the Gulf of Mexico. So it's nice to be able to go take a bike ride on the beach or walk on the beach and leave my phone turned off. And so that's really the difference. Now, I'm not one of these older generation that says these kids today, they got their phones, they're connected. It's a good thing. When I was a kid, I had to memorize stuff in math. I had to memorize arithmetic. You want to know what 11 times 12 is? I know. You want to know how to conjugate a verb? I know. You want to know how to write with handwriting? I know. We don't have to teach kids that anymore. If you want to know the product of two numbers, you type it into your calculator. Soon you'll probably just hold the calculator to your head and it'll tell you. So we can replace memorization and looking things up in a book that takes 2 days to go get in the library with knowing everything. So we've given people access to tremendous amounts of information. And I think a challenge, if you want to take it on the global stage, is how do we reduce the asymmetry? We have the information haves and the information have-nots. In the US, everybody has a cell phone. Everybody. If you live under a bridge and you're homeless, you have a cell phone because the government gives them to people who can't afford their own. And so everybody's plugged in and everybody's connected. What about the rest of the world where we don't have bandwidth, where we don't have devices, where we don't have electricity to charge them? How do we prevent this becoming a wider separation between first world and third world from an information perspective? On the other hand, if we can get the technology to people who've lacked educational infrastructure, who've lacked social infrastructure, who've lacked the ability to interact outside of their immediate area, we can discover that there's another Da Vinci or another Gandhi that nobody would have ever heard of because they had no way to learn and they had no way to teach. And so I think as we democratize information, we can see lots of big changes that might happen in the world. And I hope we continue on that path.
So what is the main point that made technology to reach every human being? What made that point human to feel the user interface like a human being? It is they are communicating with the devices, they are communicating with the app now today. What that particular point made that app and that software to uh, uh, behave like that is a human being and communicate with a human being?
Well, to behave like a human being, if that's what you're asking about AI, let me answer your question. I think there might be two questions there. First is how do we get it everywhere? And if you look at what's going on with satellites, the problem we all have is we have to get a wire to the device or a transmitter to the device. Having a phone not connected to the internet is not useful. If I can't make a call, what I've got is a very expensive hammer. I can hit things with it. Having the ability to connect matters. So if you come to a dense city, a city where you may live or I may live, it's easy to string the wires from building to building to building. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, how do I get the signal to you? So look at Elon Musk and Starlink. They're launching thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of satellites that will provide bandwidth anywhere in the world. Not just bandwidth, but bandwidth with low latency. And I want to make a point to your listeners. When they hear about networking, everybody talks about speed. I've got a 1 gig circuit. I've got a 5 gig circuit. I've got a 10 gig circuit. For normal human interaction, much more important is latency than bandwidth. If I want to send the Library of Congress down the pipe, I need a lot of bandwidth. If you and I are doing a video chat, we need low latency because every time a packet goes from you to me, if there's a problem with it, the system resends it But if it takes 50 milliseconds to resend it, we get the blocky, blotchy video and the choppy audio. So having a satellite network that allows us to reach anywhere in the world and connect people, and even maybe more important, stuff. If I know that you have a medical condition because a wristwatch that you're wearing detects a heart attack, or because something that's monitoring your facial expression in a clinic says you're maybe having a stroke, I'm not talking to you, the patient, I'm talking to the machine that's looking at you or taking data from you, and I can act on that. Or if I'm farming and I want to get the most use out of my land, which is very important, and the machines can be driven by a satellite signal to say, drive around that rock, drive over here, and the way the hill is contoured, the best way to keep the water would be to terrace the crops this way instead of going up and down. So we've got the ability to change a lot of the world as long as we can reach the signal wherever we want to go. And the satellite companies that are starting to do this are going to, in the next 5 or 10 years, change the world. Because once I launch a satellite, satellites are expensive to launch, right? I got to get the satellite and get it up into orbit. Well, the companies now that are competing are lowering the price of space launches. It's almost digital how quick it's coming down. Once I put the satellite up in the air and it's spinning around, if I want to carry 100 calls or 100,000 calls, the difference in cost is almost nothing. So my prediction to your listeners is 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the cost of bandwidth, real useful bandwidth, will be close to zero. And it'll be the same cost whether you're in New York, whether you're in Bangalore, or you're in the middle of the desert. And so I think that's going to be a huge change where it wasn't a question of, can I afford the connection? Can I afford that text message? Can I afford to look that up? Can I afford to hook my well or my pump or my tractor to the internet? The cost will go very down. And then you asked about, I think, AI. I've been hearing that AI is going to change the way we work since I was in college. That's 1970. I'll tell you, when I went to college in 1970, I became a student in electrical engineering, not computer science, because my school didn't offer computer science. Well, that's funny. Why didn't they offer it? Because they said to us, within 5 years, we would not need any programmers. AI was going to write all the programs for us. That's 1970. They told us in 1975 we wouldn't need any programmers. We would just need people to design the chips. Now, what's funny is we have millions and millions and millions of programmers, and the chips are so complicated, people can't design them anymore. AI designs the chip, and people write the programs. So forgive me for being a little bit skeptical that AI is right around the corner. But I will say the initials AI, to me, don't stand for artificial intelligence. They stand for augmented intelligence, making you and me smarter. So if I have a device that lets me look things up, all of a sudden, I know the answer to questions that I might have had a guess on. And if that's a question about building a bridge or making a business investment, and I don't guess, don't I look smarter? The computer helps me make that decision. So I think if you look at AI and say, yes, it's going to make us smarter. I got my hip replaced. I had a bad hip and the doctor had to replace it. And it's kind of simple surgery. It's almost like woodworking. They use chisels and hammers and saws, but everything has to fit just perfectly or your legs aren't the right length. So my doctor used an AI vision system that looked inside the hole in my leg and told him, you might want to use this part connected to this part, connected to this part. And so instead of trying 3 or 4 times to get it right, the doctor was able to look at what the AI said, which was looking into my incision, and it advised him. And the doctor's still the doctor. The computer didn't do the work, but the computer said, based on this picture, try this first. And they tried it and it worked, and my surgery was half an hour faster than it otherwise would have been. So I think that's where AI is going to come in for the next few years. It's not going to replace people. it's going to make them seem smarter. Just like robots. And again, let's talk about robots for a minute. What's a robot? A robot is not what you see in the movies, a big metal person that walks around. It is a device that helps us. When you load a truck, in a lot of warehouses now, they wear something from about here to down their waist, and it's an exoskeleton. It's a metal device with batteries. So as they lift and as they twist, they don't hurt their backs. So it makes the people stronger. If I've got a device like a scooter, it doesn't make me any different, but it makes me faster. I can now get from one place in the warehouse to the other without using my energy. So we think about how the robots and AI are making us stronger and smarter and faster and also safer, because it may look for things we can't see. That makes the people a lot more productive. Whether they're in your country or my country, we can augment employees, we can augment workers, we can augment police and soldiers and firefighters. Imagine if the firefighter could climb up 3 stories of the ladder in no time because they're wearing an exoskeleton, or handle a hose twice as powerful as the one they could handle without an exoskeleton. So we've got the ability to make our workers, to make our lives a lot easier using the right technology. And it isn't going to be, for everybody that worries in the next 10 years, AI will put us all out of business, robots will put us all out of business. Nah. It will help make us safer, stronger, smarter, and faster. Now, over the long run, it will change the world more than any of us know. But in the short run, I believe it will just help us do what we do better.
So you mentioned Elon Musk. What is your view on artificial intelligence? I mean, augmented intelligence and Neuralink.
Well, as I say, anything involving AI and involving technology, Neuralink, of course, is the direct neural interface. One day, will they have a way to connect our brains to a device? I'm sure they will. Someday, we'll decode the electrical impulses. I'm not the first one. They're not going to put an electrode in my brain to try it, but when I can wear a hat, maybe that's a good idea. So more and more, we're becoming one with our devices. If I'm holding a phone in my hand, that's a phone in my hand. If I'm wearing goggles over my face, I'm now a person-machine hybrid, right? Because I've got the goggles that are helping me do what I do. If I then wear robotic arms, I've now got a machine helping me. Here's an example for me. We in the US had a lot of laws about doctors. So if you were a doctor in the state of Texas, where I live, you could not treat a patient in Louisiana, which is the next state. So I could be right here in Texas and the Louisiana patient 10 miles away, but by law I couldn't treat them because I wasn't licensed in Louisiana, as though they practice a different kind of medicine in one city versus another. During the pandemic, the US government changed the law. Now doctors can practice from one state in the US to another. But I have a question for the government. Why can't a doctor in India that has medical training and a degree and experience and certification treat a patient in America? Why can't we have goggles over their faces? Why can't we have systems that are reading your smartwatch, that are reading an EKG, that are weighing you and measuring your blood, and then put the doctor in India into a glove box, the way they handle nuclear products, where you put your hands inside of gloves, and then the robot at the other end is operating on the dangerous stuff? Why can't a doctor in India do surgery in Texas? Right now, mainly because it's against the law. It's also in the US because with our healthcare system, nobody will pay for it. That's 2. And number 3, we don't have the low latency, high reliability network. The latency is such that I may lose the connection, and that's not so good when you're sewing somebody up. So if I had a little bit of AI local to the patient that could finish the sewing, or at least stop thoughtfully while the connection needed to be restored, why can't I take doctors who are the experts, whether they're in New York, or they're in Tokyo, or they're in New Delhi, and have them operate or do medical procedures anywhere in the world, so we all get the best care. And that's going to come. I think it's going to come technically quite fast. Better networking, better AI, and better edge computing. The regulations, the laws, how countries say, well, in the US, I don't want to export my medical care to India and Vietnam, lower cost countries, or I don't believe they'll give good health care. Well, that's a matter of people getting used to it and having choices. So what we have a lot with technology is the regulations don't keep up with the technology. The technology in some cases is easy. You know, the Uber who drives cabs or cars, the taxi industry in the US was heavily regulated. In New York, there weren't enough taxi cabs because the government said, this is how many cabs there will be. And they set that rule 50, 60 years ago. I think it's actually 80 years ago now. The city's grown, but the cabs did not grow the same pace. So then Uber came along with relatively simple software and changed the regulation. I describe Uber and Airbnb as legal companies more than they are technology companies because they changed the law and the regulation more than they did something with technology that was groundbreaking. They applied relatively simple technology in a new way. And so that's what I think for your listeners, if they're business people, it's not about getting the fastest, best, coolest tech. It's about coming up with a need that isn't being satisfied because the economy is broken, because the regulations are broken, because the supply chain is broken, and finding a way to use some tech creatively to exploit that broken to help people and at the same time make money.
Can artificial intelligence meet intelligence?
Well, the question always becomes, how long are we asking? Do you think if someday is measured in centuries? Sure. I'm not going to predict. Nobody can predict. You know, there's a thing called the Turing test. Alan Turing, the great mathematician, said if I'm having a conversation with something at the other end of a microphone or a teletype, typing thing, and I can't tell if they're a person or a computer, then they are intelligent. Well, if you're talking to your bank or your airline or your insurance company, likely you can't tell that you're talking to a person versus a computer most of the time. So are they intelligent? I wouldn't want to invite them to a dinner party. No, they can answer a narrow range of questions. So if you're asking any question about technology, the answer is yes, someday. And the money is made and the money is lost predicting when. With AI, I think general purpose AI is further away than people think, but special purpose, keeping cars from colliding, keeping our factories running, helping the doctor, helping the lawyer, helping the business executive, that's coming faster than people imagine. But will it replace us all and we'll all sit around and lounge in our lounge chairs while the computers do all the work for us? Certainly not in my lifetime, and probably not in your lifetime. But they can, if used thoughtfully, improve the standard of living for people around the world.
So how much time it takes for a human to create AI that will be helpful for other species on this planet other than human?
Well, that's what I say. The people who know a lot more than me, the people who wrote the books on AI in the 1960s, were predicting it in 5 to 10 years. I've been in IT for 46 years. For 46 years, AI has only been 5 to 10 years away. And I think they started talking about it before I got into technology. The notion of a general purpose AI, the oracle that knows everything and will answer any question, is far off. Is it 10 years, 20 years, 50 years? Predicting technology more than 3, 4, 5 years out is a game for journalists and philosophers, not business people and computer people. We don't know what the breakthrough will be. We don't know what the change will be. We don't know what the algorithm that's discovered that we may not have now, or the power of computing. We know we can do brute force, right? If computers are getting twice as fast every 18 months, and it goes on and on and on, just do the math. We can have computers that are 1,000 times as fast, so we can brute force problems in 10 years. Will that be the elegant solution that is better? And let's get to the question of how do you measure better? Because at the end of the day, it's a human being programming the computer, even the AI, and saying, this is what a good AI looks like. So again, we've all watched the science fiction movies that when the AIs start programming themselves, they may have different thoughts about people than we have about people. They may not like us as much as we like us. But that's science fiction and movies. It's not about the business that you are in and I am in and how we're going to make things happen.
So when the technologists are going to rule the world?
Never. I hope not. I'm a technologist. I hope the technologists never rule the world. I hope people with compassion, the people that understand people, rule the world. Well, nobody rules the world. I hope we all get to cooperate. Obviously, that's we're getting into philosophy here, not business and technology. But at the end of the day, I'm actually participating in a conversation later today, no, Monday, that says, can we eliminate the CEO and make them an AI? That's silly. The number of decisions we have to make as people, we make decisions about stuff we've never seen before. The problem with AIs is unless you've given them a way to make those decisions, they have to learn in a way that we don't know how to simulate. You might see something you've never seen before. If a meteor landed behind you while we're having this conversation, you'd do something. Maybe you'd run and hide under the bed. Maybe you'd get a sword and go chase it. I don't know. But the AI, unless we've told it what to do or we change the way we think about the technology, wouldn't react like you would react or like I would react. So as a technologist, I want to be the custodian. I want to be the helper. If there's a politician that wants to help people, if there's a religious leader, if there's a philosopher, how can we help them achieve their ends? Now, as a technologist, I don't want my technology to be used for evil. Of course we don't. Unfortunately, with any technology that's developed, there's usually an offensive capability, a defensive capability. It can be used by different people. And there's no way to keep that genie in the bottle. When somebody comes up with controlled nuclear fusion, which again is another one of those, it's in 10 more years and we'll have it for 30 or so years, but someday we'll have it. What's to stop you with that power, that energy, from doing something bad with it? Just like I can do many things that are good. So there's an element where society has to be in charge of technology. And I hope, as a technologist, that we never say, well, they're techies, they're smarter. Again, bad science fiction movies always have that as a plot, right? The scientists are smarter, so we're just going to run the world. Nah, it takes all of us to run the world. And I don't want to use the word rule, but to shape the future. And so I'll take this away from philosophy and back to business. When I talk to a board of directors, which is what I do, I will tell them, here are some things technology is doing in your industry. Here's how we're improving manufacturing or healthcare or this VR and AI discussion we just had. Now, what could you think to do with that? If I gave you this capability, what would you want to do with it in your company? The same conversation you'd be had in hospitals, in charities, in social work. If I could 3D print a house, maybe I should be printing houses for people who need homes. If I could be printing the material, maybe I should tie with some robots to put the material together and make houses much cheaper. So I think that's the key. As a technologist, I need to listen to what the business and religious and political and social leaders are saying and say, I can help you with that. Or say to them, here's something you may not have thought about. Here's something technology might do for you. And we could use that to then advance your mission. And of course, we all want to think we work on the side of good, not evil. So I would want to be talking to them about good things. And we all have our own morals. Obviously in some of the big tech companies in the US, employees have voiced their disapproval of working for the government, of working for the military, of working for companies they didn't like. Look what's going on. The category in the US, at least, it's called ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So what are the impacts of business? What are the impacts of technology on the environment, on the world at large, and on how we make laws and how laws affect us? So ESG issues and how we manage companies to be, I don't want to say moral, that implies kind of goodness and badness. But if we decide that we don't want to have as much fossil fuel as a society, how can technology help reduce it? If the society says we want more nuclear plants, how do we make nuclear plants safer? I'm not enough of an expert in nuclear plants to know if they're good or bad. I kind of think they're good given the designs that are out today, but I haven't researched it enough. But if I was working for a utility, an energy company, and that's their design, and I felt comfortable, I might show them how to make it more cyber secure, or more better able to be controlled, or better able to be monitored. And I think that's a lot of what we do in technology, whether we're engineers and we make machinery, which is what I did when I first started, or now that we write the programs. How do we help enable productivity? Microsoft's chairman, Satya Nadella, gave a keynote at the Ignite show, the Microsoft show. And he said that technology is a deflationary force in an inflationary world. And what he meant by that, people hear deflation, inflation, they think macroeconomics. But what he was saying was that technology allows us to bring unit costs down in a world when everything else is going up. The cost of raw materials coming out of the ground has gone up. If I want to get lithium to make car batteries, lithium has gone through the roof because demand has gone up. Oil is now higher than it was. But the cost of AI is down 80 or 90 or 99 or 99.9%. The cost of a banking transaction, the cost of booking an airline ticket. If you're working in an area that has robotics and AI, the labor cost involved in driving or mining or shipping is coming down because the technology can do it for us. So deflation in this sense is good. It's shorthand for increasing productivity caused by intense use of technology. And if we can have higher productivity at lower costs, that improves the standard of living for people, because it means the companies using this can sell their products cheaper. And, again, we can get into political discussions. I'm assuming that there's competition in your economic structure. And if I want to have a high price for something and keep the money, the other company will come along and go, I'll sell it for less. India has the largest vaccine company in the world. India has the largest generic drug industry in the world. That was all formed on the idea that somebody in the US is getting that much for a product, but as soon as the patents expire, I'm going to get this much for the product and make a lot more of it. If none of those Indian generic drug companies ever existed, the drug companies in the US would still keep charging crazy amounts of money. Nobody went to the Indian drug company and said, don't do that. We have a competitive free market, and that's good. So that company is able to compete. And anytime somebody gets too much profit in a properly functioning economy, we can talk about that separately, somebody can come compete with them. Well, what I mean by properly functioning is if you get a oligopsony, where you've got a number of buyers controlling the market, or oligopoly, where a number of sellers control the market, they distort it. If company A and company B decide not to compete, and between them they control the whole market for, say, advertising. I'm not naming any names, but let's say two companies control the market for online advertising. Neither of them can compete with the other one to drop prices, and we all pay more. So there are distortions, but we hope that our political system, that our social system fixes that over time. But in a normally functioning economy, when the US drug prices are high because of our R&D, the Indian generic industry comes up and says, we will beat the price and create a new industry. And that's what tends to happen. And they did it because of the technology, largely. I mean, right? The cost of designing and making a drug factory has probably come down a lot because I've got better technology. And so that allows generic drug companies, I'm going to guess, I'm not a drug maker, a generic drug company to offer a quality product at a much lower price once somebody has done the $1 billion worth of R&D and approval. So the technology has allowed us to sell drugs cheaper. The technology has allowed us to operate vehicles and machines in our factories cheaper and safer. People don't recognize this a lot. Robots are going to put us out of work. I come from an engineering background. I worked in a factory. I used to ride an ambulance. That was a hobby of mine. I got certified to ride an ambulance. I saw a lot of people get hurt at companies. I would love a robot to do a lot of the jobs that are very dangerous for people. Let's take some of the danger out of that, either help the people with technology or just do that little part of the job with a robot where if something goes wrong, the metal parts get squished and not your arm or your finger or your head. So the technology does allow us, if we're thoughtful about it, to get rid of the dirty and dangerous and maybe even uncomfortable jobs, depending on where you are in the world, and fix them with technology. But again, I don't think we're going to replace them entirely. But this Nadella quote is very appropriate. As inflation is hitting everything, the cost of tech is coming down, not just a thing on our phone, but the thing that makes your car, the thing that farms your crops, the thing that cooks in the restaurant. And so I think that's something that's keeping prices under control. And that's good because more people can afford stuff. And the standard of living goes up. Again, I'm quoting things that I don't know. I don't live all over the world. The standard of living around the world is higher than it's ever been, largely due to technology.
So artificial intelligence, information technology, and nature technology. What is the connection between these?
You really want to talk about AI a lot. Okay, I'll keep going on that. Look, the opportunity has come up to solve problems with AI that we couldn't solve before. Whether it's for a lot of what we want to know is what's going to happen tomorrow. You want to forecast the weather. We've always wanted to know what's going to be the weather tomorrow. Do we go out or stay in? Do we plant the crop or harvest the crop? Right? What's going to happen? I was in the energy business. How much air conditioning are people going to need on that block a year from now at 9 p.m.? We had to know that kind of stuff. So using better technology allows us to forecast better. And if we use it wisely to eliminate the friction, the place where stuff in the economic cycle doesn't match. Have we produced enough semiconductors for the cars we're going to ship? We know the answer right now is no. But if we had better information and better forecasting and better prediction, maybe an AI could have helped. Say to the car company, this is what you plan, but maybe the market might do that, so provide some buffer stock. So I think it's getting people together with better data. And the whole thing, it starts with collecting the data. What's going on in the world? You're standing where you are, I'm sitting where I am. I can look out my window, you can look behind you. What's going on the next block and the block after that and the block after that? If every car on the street was connected to each other, not to some government, this is not government's going to track us, but if all the cars talk to each other, you know what would happen at traffic lights? You know what happened at stop signs? You know what happened on the road? The efficiency of moving on the roads would probably go up 50%, 75%. If cars could tell each other, don't go into this lane, I want to go into this lane. I'm going to make a right turn. Hey, there's a bicycle coming. So what's called V2V, vehicle to vehicle communication, could dramatically improve the safety and the speed through the system. Now, unless we make driving illegal, we have to accommodate the crazy human that decides to make a right turn from the left lane or a left turn from the right lane. But if the computers are doing more of that, they can anticipate, they can look, maybe they'll even find the driver that did something stupid without needing a cop. I would take that. I'm a safe driver. Not everybody would see it that way. But so we can do a lot by using the capabilities of even limited AI. If you're trying to synchronize a factory, I want to know that an order that comes in over here, customer calls and says, send me more of that thing. Well, I got to know that the price for the raw materials went up. And by the way, I can't get it for 3 months. So what do I tell the customer? It'd be sure nice if I could hook this all together. So I've got to have data sensors where the customer's putting in an order, where the mine is mining the material or the farm is growing the crop. I've got to have visibility into my supply chain. How is it getting from place to place, and how is it being stored into an interim storage, a warehouse, a truck to get to my home or my office. And so if I can get the data and then bring it where I need it, now we're back to that networking. Remember how we started with 5G and satellites and such? If I can connect my farm through a satellite internet to my computer, I would now know to tell the farmer, when you're planting next season, I'm going to want more of this kind of apple versus that kind of apple. So don't plant the wrong apple. And if I can start saying, I'm looking and I'm seeing that they're planting green apples and people want yellow apples, maybe we should have a farm meeting and talk about consumer demand driving planting. We don't do that now. The supply chain is broken into little silos. So having the connectivity from the consumer's brain, what do I want to buy? What am I asking my retail store for? All the way through the supply chain. Or alternatively, hey, next year there are going to be a lot of yellow apples. Let's come up with some good recipes for yellow apples and get people to want to buy more yellow apples because they're available and cheap. So I've got to be able to get the data in, then I've got to be able to store it and process it at scale. And then I've got to use the AI and ML to start advising people. Now, the big challenge, like we said earlier, it's not the technology. It's the companies not wanting to cooperate. This is my data. You can't have my data. It's my secret. It's industries not wanting to share. The trucking industry versus the farming industry versus the grocer. How do we start getting information exchange that allows the whole process to flow better? I presume that's either by regulation, the government says you have to share. Again, I'll speak to healthcare in the US. Healthcare in the US, the systems that sit in the hospitals and what's called the providers, the people who treat you, there's only a couple of companies that make those systems. And for many years, they didn't want the data to go from system A to system B to competitors. Well, if people can't get the data out, they'll buy more of my system. So all the hospitals that want to talk will buy my computer system and not theirs. And the government said, no, it's not okay. Healthcare in the US has to interoperate by law. Going back 30, 40 years ago, when we traded stocks, you ever buy a share of stock? Buy a share of stock in IBM or in Tesla or whatever? 40 years ago, they were paper certificates, literally pieces of paper. And I would call my broker on the phone, hey, buy 100 IBM. And 30 days later, my broker would have those shares in my name. For 30 days, I did not know where my money was. It was gone in the black hole of the brokerage industry. And what happened was, by the way, the brokers made a ton of money because they had 30 days to sell and buy the stock. They guess, they tell me IBM is going to be $78 a share. And depending on whether they're long or short IBM, they're going to buy it at 77 or 79, and I get to eat the difference. I gave you a buy or sell, and I couldn't do it, so best execution. And they keep the money because they timed it properly. They bought it early and sold it late, or vice versa. And so they made a ton of money on us dumb consumers because I can't buy my own shares of stock. And the US government then said, you have to take it from 30 days to 7 days. And then they said, you have to take it from 7 days to 3 days. And then they said, we're going to make you do it in 1 day. And I was on Wall Street. I was in the brokerage industry. The brokers said, nah, if we got to do it in 1 day, we're going to do it instantly. And they introduced something called straight through processing, STP. And so a transaction you put into a retail broker in your neighborhood gets executed on the New York Stock Exchange or the London Stock Exchange or the Stockholm Stock Exchange almost instantly. And the money is then credited to you within a day, but they execute within seconds. And so that's not the industry wanting to do it. That's the regulators saying you can't use your power You're in asymmetry. You know more than the consumer to take advantage of the consumer. So a lot of what we're talking about here is going to be either somebody finds a way to buy and sell the data. Again, Airbnb. I've got a house that's sitting empty. I'll tell you about it in return for you taking a commission and renting it for me, right? So there's somebody that said, I'll pay you for some information and use of your property when you're not using it. Same with Uber. Or there'll be a government regulation which says you have to share data in the case of healthcare, or you have to collapse your process and give your customer the benefit of the efficiency. And so a lot of what we're seeing with how to hook this stuff together end to end is technology. It's 5G and satellite. It's better Internet of Things. It's edge computing, the ability to store and process data in the field. All of those have to happen, no question. But a lot of it has to be kind of society deciding that getting friction out of the system, society deciding that not letting the company profit from information asymmetry matters. And so we then want to work as a society to say, let's get the benefit to the consumer rather, or the provider, if it's a labor thing, versus the company. And that's the challenge for our society, the tech companies, whether in China or India or US or wherever, have gotten so big and powerful out of nowhere, creating industries that didn't exist 20 years ago. And now it's up to us as members of our society to influence our political structures to create the right amount of regulation. Not too much, but not too little, so that the benefits flow from the company coffers to our pockets. And we all benefit. The company's got to benefit because they developed it, but they can't get to keep all the money and take it from you and me.
Can I say human being in information technology industry use the maximum mind, brain efficiently and effectively? That is why the reason other human beings in other industry are dependent on IT industry today.
Yeah, I mean, our industry, the technology industry per se, is no different than the invention of the printing press, or go back millennia, the wheel. Somebody said, here's this thing called a wheel, and you don't have to drag stuff on the ground. So whatever, everybody wants to treat the cloud as some fundamentally new thing. It's the cloud. It's different than everything in the past. No, not true. Or it's technology. It's different. I trained as an engineer. I built machines in factories. If I could take a machine that was moving at 10 pieces a minute and get the machine to do 12 pieces a minute without breaking stuff or the quality going down, we benefited. There was not information technology. There was better gearing or better tolerances on my parts or a new kind of steel. When I was very young, early 20s, I bought steel for a company to make things. And my job was to come up with the right kind of steel that we could buy based on heat and pressure and temperature and all the things that affected what we were making. And this was not information technology. And by the way, I got this out of books. They had catalogs on my desk, and I would take the book and I'd read it, and I would then make notes, and I'd read another book and make notes and say, let's try, a ton of that steel. And so the steel industry is moving forward, and that helped people who make things. You see, Tesla is doing mega forgings. When they're making the Model Y, instead of it being, some hundreds of parts, they're making the whole back of the car out of one. They're making the whole front now out of one. And one of these days, they'll make the whole car out of one. Again, there's technology, there's IT in there, but it's mostly about how to make a press that'll do whatever, 20,000 tons or whatever the number is. So anything we do in engineering is designed around productivity, quality, safety, speed, whatever you're trying to optimize. So all of technology has been an effort to reduce the labor of people. Like there's a thing that an engineer will spend an infinite amount of time here to save time over there. I'll spend weeks to get 5 minutes out of a process for 50 people. And so that's the way we ought to be looking at all of this technology. It is primarily an engineering solution to a problem. In the past, it was problems of, We had muscle problems solved with a better gear and a better motor and a better drive belt, the physical world. And then we had problems in securities and banking and healthcare solved by technology. So again, for your listeners, it's real important to note that for decades, the old systems in factories were done by factory engineers, not computer scientists who did the same thing they do in banks. And that's called OT, operational technology, or IoT is kind of a subset of that, Internet of Things. It's how do we make the parts smarter and connect them better. So now what's happening is we're connecting the machines themselves, and that's everything from the crop dusters to the farm equipment, to the pallet loaders, to the warehouse equipment, to the canning machine in the fruit factory, up to the ordering system, the shipping system, the customer demand, the marketing, and the advertising system. If I'm going to run an ad for canned pineapple in 2 weeks, let's go get some more canned pineapple made. Or if I got a whole bunch of pineapple that I didn't know I was going to have, and therefore it's cheaper, let's go tell Google to run a pineapple ad for me. So we're starting to connect the OT and the IT. Sounds great. There is a challenge. If somebody hacks my IT system or it breaks, what happens? I get a bad bank statement. I get a wrong grocery bill, or my cable TV doesn't work. If I do it on the OT side, people can get hurt. People can die. Machines blow up. So we have to be thoughtful as a society that the more we hook stuff together from the IT world to the OT world, the more we're opening ourselves up to risks. But the opportunity of fixing it, of improving the process, is just so big that we can't not do it. We just have to do it very thoughtfully. When you see ransomware is taking down companies, when ransomware takes down a hospital, people can die. I was on a call once about 2 months ago with a bunch of CIOs, and we were talking about a number of issues. And a gentleman joins the call and said he worked in Ireland, the country Ireland. He said somebody just hacked the entire Irish healthcare system. We're all down. I got to go. And we all heard about it. This person was living it for days and weeks. How do you treat patients when all of your technology stops working? So if it's manufacturing, if it's logistics, if it's airplanes in the sky, how do we build systems that are secure, that are reliable, that are available, when the physical world and the good and the bad of the physical world is all tied to the IT world?
So you are into IT for 40 plus years. You can answer any question that I have in my mind. So what is the key point, or what is the point that is that you don't understand when it comes to I and AI?
Well, the point, there's a lot of things I don't understand. I don't understand why people don't use it better. The biggest issue for me, again, I work with business people. I'm not a professor of philosophy. I'm not a guy who writes books on the future of AI. I help people build stuff in the real world. And so the challenge, I'll say this to everybody listening to you in India. If you are a business executive, if you run a company, if you're on the board of a company, you have to know something about technology. You don't have to know how it works. I had a boss once that said, I'm afraid of technology. He's the CEO of a company. I'm afraid of technology. I don't know how it works, but I know what I want to do with it. I need to serve my customers this way. I need my products to move that way. I need my reports to look like this. He was the best boss I ever had because he never tried to tell me how to do my job as the CIO. But he was very clear about what he needed to move the business forward. And because he'd been at the company for 30 years, he really did know what the company needed. And the employees trusted that he knew what the company needed. So he was able to show them why change was good. Then we built it in technology. He told us what he wanted. We built it how we wanted. And then he showed the company why that was going to help the employees or the profits or the customers or whatever. He didn't have to learn how AI works or what IoT means, but he said, I want to be able to track packages as they go from person number 1 to person number 2 and get loaded on truck number 3. Got it, boss. And we went off and built that. So if you're a CEO, if you're a board director, if you're a chief of marketing or operations, you need to learn enough about what technology can do for you on the risk side, what the risks are of technology. And by the way, they're more than just cyber. Everybody goes, cybersecurity, cybersecurity, cybersecurity. Yeah, I got it. I can still break IT in a lot of other ways. And they also have to know what opportunities there are. If we could do this, would that make our better company? Or talking to somebody like me, what are we doing about drones? What are we doing about AR and VR? What are we doing about AI? What are we doing about IT, OT connections? So there are ways we can educate the business. And what I'm baffled about is how many people run companies around the world and delegate the thinking of IT to their IT department. You're the IT department, you go figure it out. No, if you're the CEO, if you're the chairman of the board, you have to help us think through it. What do you wish you could have that you don't have now? What do you hate about what we do in the company today? And without that kind of guidance, without that kind of information, we will never be able to advance. The company will never be able to advance. And they will get surprised by the Amazons and the Airbnbs and other businesses that recognize that information matters. And the best user of technology can often win. So I think that's what I don't understand. It's not about the technology. There's a lot I don't understand about technology. Quantum computing, fully homomorphic encryption, AI in how it works anymore. I'm long removed from being able to write that code myself. But I need to understand what the risks are, what the opportunities are, and even more than me, the business people need to be able to connect that to, I want to make, I want to sell, I want to buy, I want to do using that technology.
So you said people are not using the technology properly. So what are the things that people who are watching and listening to our conversation need to follow or need to do and works for them that worked for you in order to understand things faster?
Well, again, I think that if you're a business person, you have to stop being afraid of technology. You have to not say, that's something for those other people to know. I don't want to know it. I'm a business person. I'm a marketing person, a salesperson, a manufacturing person. No, you can't get away from it. And so the things, I'll just close by saying there's a few things business should focus on. The connectivity revolution is coming. 5G, satellite, some improvements to Wi-Fi and to Bluetooth, they're all happening. And so the ability to connect everything to everything else will change the world. So if you're a business person, think about how unlimited free connectivity, we're not yet either unlimited or free, but we're getting there, will change the way you make or ship or buy or service your products. AI and ML, particularly vision processing, natural language processing. If I can see with a computer that something is out of spec, if I can see that my car is going to have a collision with the other car, if I can see that my packages are not aligned properly, I can make choices that make it safer, smoother, and faster. So that's going to be a huge area for growth. And then the whole area about sense and respond. I collect data, I process it, I make a decision, and I drive something in what's called a closed loop control system. How would it change if I had Internet of Things, everything connected through these networks I described, and the ability to operate remotely? And the last item that I'll say is the pandemic made many of us go home. And we learned when we went home was that we did our jobs pretty darn well from home. We didn't have to be in the office every day. Now, a lot of people, you drive a cab, you cut meat, you farm, you got to be there. I get that. But for those that don't have to be somewhere, they can be anywhere. And so companies have to recognize that talent is the thing we all need more than anything. We need people. We need smart people. We need people that will work together. And so whether the people are in your neighborhood or my neighborhood, we all ought to be going after those people. And we ought to be enabling them to work well individually and collectively as teams to build the products we need to keep the future going. And so that's what business people should focus on. How do we connect to it? How do we make decisions about it? How do we appreciate, understand the real world? And then how do we put people into our companies who can get us from here, wherever we are today, to the future?
So when we are going to communicate with other species on other planets?
That's another interview with a different person. I have no idea. I would love to talk to them, but my guess is the one thing you can say about aliens, they're alien. So I've watched enough science fiction that I don't know and I don't care and I don't want to speculate.
Okay, because you are into information technology for a long time, so I just wanted to know your observation.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can read all you want, but we don't know. There's, if you think about the beauty of being alive today, is we probably more than ever realize how little we know about the universe. 1,000 years ago, they thought they had it all figured out. 100 years ago, in the United States, we have a patent office. Everybody with a new thing brings it to the patent office and gets a patent to protect their intellectual skill. In 1898, was it 125 years ago roughly, they put a new head of the patent office in. And he went to the president of the United States and said, we should shut down the patent office because everything that can possibly be invented has already been invented. 125 years ago. Just think of the changes in the world. But here's the person responsible for the office where people bring new ideas, saying there are no more new ideas. We're done. 125 years later, we know less about the universe than we even thought we knew. And there's so many more things to learn, so many more things to do, so many more problems we can solve. I'm an optimist. I think we, with energy, I mean, the ability to generate energy, whether it's solar, whether it's nuclear, whether it's wind, whether it's wave, whether it's geothermal, the ability to get that power where we want to get it, from wherever we make it to wherever we use it, will change the world. AI, the kind of deflationary thing that Nadella was talking about, will change the cost of things. And so I think if we can just keep from killing ourselves for a few more years, we will be able to get to a place where the world looks very different. And maybe looks different for more people around the world than we were able to help before.
So my last question is, what do you understand about productivity, construction, development, and and creating things which is not existed before, developing the business, managing human resources? So what do you understand about this complete scenario?
Well, if you're talking about innovation, that's what I was talking about with the business and IT talking. We all operate in silos. Manufacturing's over here, marketing's over here, production's over here, logistics is over here. Many, many things we can do in the business by working together better. Now, when I write, for your listeners, I write a lot of columns. Follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter. I write about this all the time. There are two ways that technology can be used. One of them is called digital transformation. And everybody hears that term, and many people use it. I maintain most people don't know what it means. Digital transformation is changing your culture, your products, your markets, your customer experience, and your employee experience, either through the use of technology or because of the threat of technology, because Amazon opens up or somebody offers a product out on offer. So maybe I got to do it, or maybe I can do it. So threat or opportunity. And that is driven from the top of the company on down. And that's a matter of the executives, the leaders who form the company or guide the company, having a vision of what the service and product they're in is. The other use of technology I call digital optimization. And that means doing what you do today, doing it better, doing it faster, and doing it cheaper through the use of technology. That's automating the bill paying. That's automating the truck that delivers the package to your house. That's automating the forklift in your warehouse, or making a conveyor belt with a camera on it. It didn't change the product. It just let me offer it better, faster, and cheaper. So innovation is a matter of, here's what you can do with tech. Now let's go find a business use. Here's what somebody else is doing with tech. Let's find a response. Or here's a business problem we want to solve. Hey, tech, how can you help me? So that's why I said you need the right people from wherever they are in the world You need to give them the right tools so they can work effectively. And then you need to listen to each other. If the business listens to technology and technology listens to the business, overall, we will innovate faster and better than we can if we don't talk to each other and don't listen to each other.
So you are the person who understands the human created thing and human both, the machine and the machine which is created by nature. So what is your observation about my work on my YouTube channel, on my podcast? Me talking with different country people who are into different professions. What is your view?
Well, you want me to do a review? I've only watched a few of your podcasts. My review is, like I said at the beginning, it's good for me to be engaging with listeners in a different part of the world who may not normally listen to a person like me. I listened to your podcast. I thought they were quite technical evangelists, big software companies. That's not me at all. So the more we can get into dialogue, the more we can get into discussion, the more we can understand each other, the better the world will be. So the reason I agreed to come on your podcast, I didn't know you from anything. I saw what you wrote. You made a request. You seemed like a rational person. So I'll give you some time. And yet everything, I hope that your listeners, when you post this on YouTube or we post it in LinkedIn or Twitter, that people respond. People might think I'm an idiot. Good, tell me that. People might think that I have some good ideas, but they don't know and we got to talk more. Tell me that too. Let's get the discussion going around the world, across the industries. It's imperative, and I work at the business IT interface. I'm not a researcher. I don't work for a university. I don't theorize. I build stuff for people and build company stuff that helps companies build better products and make more money and serve their customers. So let's start having those discussions about technology around the world and from business side to business side, marketing, sales, production, technology, and we'll all do better.
So I know you are a very busy person. When you have time, try to watch my videos. Not only technologists, people from different professions like nutritionist, army officer, police officer, who are completely opposite. Completely in different professions are there on my channel. So it's a diverse thing. So I know you're a busy person, but when you have time, try to see it. So can I put this video on my can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
You better, because we just spent an hour and a half talking, and you better put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Please,
So
please
also,
post. Yes. And again, I encourage, put my LinkedIn and my Twitter, please, so that people can reach out to me if they want. And let's get a discussion going, whether it's on YouTube or LinkedIn or Twitter or all three. I would love to have that interaction.
yeah, I'll put your links, your web links in the description of this video. People who finds our video on YouTube can see your links and can contact you, can make things possible.
That's terrific. Thank you so much.
And also, can I put this video and audio clip on my podcast website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Absolutely. As long as you get just let people know who I am, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, you can put it wherever you want.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for giving me your valuable time and spending a lot of information about IT and about other things, about AI and about a lot of useful things. I'm sure it will be useful for a lot of people.
Well, it was interesting. You asked a lot of questions I never expected anybody to ask me on an interview, so it was kind of fun.
Thank you, sir. Keep going.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.